Good evening, all. I once heard a man say that hell is for the survivors. A strange statement, to be sure, but given the nature of tonight's tale, I think there may be some wisdom to it. It is a tale known as The Worst Enemy.
John's brother used to say, "It's not the end of the world," whenever something would bother him. When they were kids, it would actually work sometimes, though he was not a kid anymore. And more to the point, it wasn't the end of the world, because that had already happened. They said it was not a cause for alarm. The situation was contained. And then, people stopped posting on social media in smaller countries. The southern half of Africa went completely dark. Then rumors started spreading. Sightings of things. He thought deep down the world didn't want to call them human, or acknowledge that they used to be. He first heard the US government address the matter as an attack in Cairo. At first, they said it was typical terrorist activity, lunatics looking to die for their god. People were quick to point out, though, mad bombers and gunmen don't pull children of their mother's arms and eat them. Finally, the president used the term reanimated bodies, as if saying zombie was so much more childish. Everyone had a reason for it. One group said God this or God that. Another said it was a virus, perhaps a mutation of the flu. John's favorite was people saying it was a product of the times. Too many people liked zombie movies or video games. So of course, they turned into shambling monsters that could unhinge their jaws to fit more flesh in their mouth. He thought that was the worst part. In the movies, they just stumble around and bite things. Maybe if the writer felt like being spicy, they could run. But these things, there wasn't anything they wouldn't do. The first one he saw was with his brother. They had seen news reports saying the things were washing up on shore and already starting to shamble towards larger populations. He swore it was like they knew where people were. Some part of their brain was still human enough to recognize patterns. It was really anticlimactic, actually. The thing looked like it was once a woman. It was staggering around in the road. It wasn't bleeding or oozing like in the shows or comic books. He ran right up to it, though once he was in arm's reach, the sounds it made still haunt his nightmares. He shouted. The baseball bat cracked against its skull. The movies always said, destroy the brain, and you destroy the creature. But it just grabbed at his brother, and still tried to take a bite out of him. It didn't stop until its head was taken completely off its shoulders. And then it went limp. It didn't even look dead, really. It looked more at peace. After that, his brother never said, "It's not the end of the world," again. They packed up after that and followed a caravan that was leaving town. He didn't think anyone really knew where they were going, but if the things were coming from the shore, inland seemed like a lovely place to be. John expected to see them on the roads, but no, it was peaceful. There was no madness or gore, no confusion and disorder, just lots of cars moving very slowly, all together. Shortly after the sun went down, most of the cars pulled over, using their cars to make a sort of makeshift camp. And that was life, at least for the first week or so. tuning in to car radios trying to pick up military broadcasts, which were always some varying flavor of "Don't panic, everything is fine." Social media, of course, told a very different story. The US was scrambling. Most government officials had already fled the country, or died mysteriously, and the survivors blamed each other. He was pretty certain that that was actually what broke him. That was the last straw. The dead would literally do anything to get at them. They ignored all critical damage to the body. They would walk through fire. John had even heard stories of them gnawing on rocks to sharpen their own teeth. And what was it that destroyed the mighty governments of man? What was it that toppled America? Other living people. Because nobody wanted to just admit they had no idea what caused a tidal wave of rotting flesh, sharpened teeth, and filthy nails. Some of the other people in the camp started talking about trying to fight the things. For all their ruthlessness, the dead never wore armor or used tools. His brother said to just think of them as any other carnivore. That actually seemed to work. It emboldened much of the camp. They broke pieces of their cars off to make jagged metal, gathered sticks, tied ropes, anything that they could use to make a weapon, so long as it was quiet. They couldn't risk drawing too much attention until they were certain the dead did not have the numbers advantage. After a week of picking off a few dozen or so, they grew more and more bold, slowly moving their camp closer and closer to a large city. They felt they had the advantage at that point, and so subtlety became less and less of a concern. Against John's personal opinions, a member of the group, Saren, volunteered to go scout in the city. She was always too interested in the damn things. John worried she would be distracted alone, but then again, the point of a scout is one person moving faster than a group, so they waited for her to come back. A little over an hour later, they heard a single gunshot ring out. After that, Tyler, a brute of a man, started to bark orders. He was always a bully, demanding his way all the time. He insisted that Saren was using the gun to signal them to go for her. John wasn't really in the mood to argue with a man twice his size, and was concerned for her well-being, so he agreed with the plan. He was near the back of the group with his brother when he heard Tyler shouting up at the front. Apparently they could see Saren, so John jogged forward to get a look, and then immediately wished he hadn't. Saren was shuffling, jaw hanging open, blood and brain tissue leaking out from a large hole where the left side of her face used to be. Her one remaining eye was rolled back. John had seen a couple of the things that really did look like walking corpses, but he'd never seen one that was alive an hour ago. Tyler picked up a fallen tree branch and proclaimed that he would take care of it. John wanted so badly to stop him, but hearing the weak shriek sound coming from what was left of her jaw made him want to see the thing be put down as well. Just when Tyler was close enough to actually strike, the creature tensed up and uttered a vile, gargling sound. And then, a burst of green, thick fluid erupted from her mouth. Though, given her head injury, it was more that it just sort of came out of her in the general direction of Tyler. The man dropped to the tree limb and thrashed wildly as his skin boiled and turned darker and darker shades while it peeled off of him. The creature backed up, half trembling it seemed, and shuffled off back towards the city. No one went after it. They were all too frightened and transfixed on Tyler, laying on the ground with most of his skin and clothes gone, little more than a writhing mass of blood and pain. John couldn't speak for anyone else there, but seeing what one of those things could do he felt more assured than ever that he could not live on the same planet as them, if you could even call this survival existence living. They had no choice but to leave Taylor there and retreat back to town. The ability of these creatures was too unpredictable to actually try and take the city. So they marched back to their town, back to their houses, thinking they were going to just push them off the edge of the world, back to the ocean floor they crawled across in the first place. They thought they could just swarm them with sharp blades, blunt clubs, or a hail of bullets if necessary. They had never thought that they could fight back, that they could adapt, that they could hide things. They were just meat-eating animals, supposedly. Then John heard a gunshot and saw his brother crumble to his knees, then slump forward in a lifeless heap. There was shouting, a foreign language that John didn't recognize, but honestly he didn't care. Men in uniform started swarming in. Some of the people put their weapons down while others returned fire, and a few ran as if hell itself had just been on their heels. He tried to drag his brother out of the street, but had to drop him when he looked into the eyes of someone who had been dead for at least a year. It screamed, and as shameful as it was, John jumped right over his own brother's body and ran to the first open door he could find. The thing didn't follow him. It just started to shove hunks of meat into its mouth from his brother's body. Amidst the gunfire, the thing finally looked up from its meal. John did find it a little bit funny. He could swear he heard the thing gasp as it saw an RPG round come right at it. And then there was a burst of fire, and an ear-splitting sound, and then the creature and John's brother were gone. John watched from his hiding place as the soldiers slowly gained control. One by one, all of the people who had finally surrendered were sprayed in the face with some strange chemical. The soldiers would nod to each other, and then allowed the people who had been sprayed to walk over towards other people in white coats, at least until one person started to scream when they were sprayed. All the soldiers backed up and pointed their weapons at the man. One person shouted, "Coven!" And then a large metal nightmare stumbled out from around a corner. It moved on 4 legs with a large car-sized body. The worst part about it was how it moved and even had the sort of shape of a dog. If a dog had a box for a head and no tail. It stood over the screaming man even as he clawed at his own face and shouted no over and over again. Then, a strange, black rubbery mass dropped out of the robot's body, like a silicone sheet. John wanted to throw up seeing the sheet become tight over the body, forming a cocoon, and then he was reeled into the robot's body, and it walked off. It almost looked proud of itself, marching like a soldier. After that, they found John and sprayed him in the face. And nothing happened. It didn't hurt. It didn't even really smell bad. One of the people in white coats explained the metal monster was a gift from Japan. He called it Lobotech's finest. They were apparently with the UN and had moved into the United States to, in their words, finish cleaning up after Russia had figured out how to detect the creatures before they fully transformed. Then the war was over. Their words, not John's. The last of the walking dead would be weeded out, along with any people carrying the parasite. Apparently, it lived in the spine. That's why they would live even if you destroyed the brain. The things could manipulate the body through its nervous system, and they didn't really care for eating flesh, actually. They just wanted dead people. Apparently, decomposing tissue was necessary for their reproduction. John asked where they came from, and his doctor just pointed up and said, "Classified." Everyone else seemed so happy then. Having pulled together, they supposedly destroyed this threat that tore down old walls. New alliances and friendships were created. But that's not how John felt. He would actually miss the dead monsters. Better an honest parasite controlling a corpse that just wanted to kill you than other people. Other people made machines like that thing. Other people would run off and abandon their brothers, or accuse each other into the grave. People would make machines like that monster. People would blame each other rather than solve the problem at all. People would abandon their brothers laying in the street bleeding. John was surrounded by lies and lunatics, godless metal monsters. He had survived the apocalypse, and all he wanted was to go back to it.
Poor John. I suppose some people have all the bad luck. Though, I'm sure he'll be fine. And if not, it'll be great grounds for another story. And I can't wait to share it with you. But for now, non nec itorum conveniens. Strange hell.
If a dog had a box for a head,